dedicated to Sthayi Bhav. And there are different ecstasies in Sthayi Bhav, and one of those, what's the word? Shamkund? What's the word? Huh? The word that describes the mood that Lord Ram is the presiding deity of. Tribulation, great difficulty, feelings that go along with that steady ecstasy. Lord Ramachandra is in charge, and so we're going to be hearing a whole series of them, one of them being this situation that Kaikeyi is put into. What's the word? Okay, he can't find it. He'll look it up. I mentioned the very beginning of our description, and I've been trying now and again to point out certain lessons. And one of the lessons of the section that we're going to be discussing this evening is the consequence of bad association. Bad association is bad for bhakti, bad for one's bhakti. We heard this morning that when Sita came to Ayodhya, Kaikeyi built a palace of gold for Sita, not for his son's wife, but for Ram's wife. In one sense, she loved Ram. Dasarath, when Kaikeyi hatches her plan, one of the things that Dasarath said was, haven't you said many times that although it's completely natural that a mother has affection, special above all affection for her own son, I find that I have even more affection for Ram than for my own son. Didn't you say that so many times, Kaikeyi? What has happened to you? Who has put this poison in your heart? You're speaking like a madwoman. And that's one of the meanings of the name, Mantara. Madness. Another meaning is walking slowly. Now, bad association doesn't just mean, somebody that's in physical proximity to you. It can mean that by circumstance of service, that you have somebody that you from time to time or even regularly associate with, and they're bad association. The age of Kali has accelerated everything, and one of the ways that Kali has accelerated everything is technology. Technology has accelerated degradation and opportunities for bad association. I remember attending a lecture. There's a lot to cover this evening, but I decided I'm going to do this more instead of this, the stories. Sridhar Swami, one of my godbrothers, was residing in New York for a number of years. He was the main fundraiser for Juhu and helped build the Juhu temple, and Prabhupada gave him sannyas, and very elevated Vaishnava. I remember attending a class that he gave in New York, And he was giving some chronology of how many centuries and different invading forces came into India trying to destroy the culture of India in order to rule India. But they were unsuccessful. But within a short period of time, he gave the examples and years and this and that, but within a short period of time, his words were, 5-star TV has done it. I remember walking, young brahmachari, visiting Vrindavan, visiting the temples of Vrindavan, and one of the temples you have to go to, Radha Damodar temple, you have to go through Loy Bazaar, and you walk through Loy Bazaar, and there's all these shops and people shopping at the shops, and one of those shops, there were 50 people crowded around one shop. And I was wondering, what is it? It's got 50 people crowded around little tiny shop, little tiny space, 50 people. And way back in the corner was a television screen about that big. And they were all watching something on television in Vrindavan. Then I could understand what Sridhar Swami was saying. Then what to speak of internet? Whoa. And then social media on internet. Whoa, whoa, whoa. It's romper room for personality of Kali. So one doesn't have to be physically proximate to an offensive person. Just get involved in social media. And so many other forms of bad association. I mean, I won't. I could easily go on a rant about the contamination opportunity and how the population of the world has been polluted by bad association. So many examples. Violence in the media, violence in movies, and so many things. Whew. So one of the things I don't like about airplane travel is they now have, everybody's got to have a movie screen in front of them because it's so boring sitting. So they either play their little games with their. These are business people that anyway. It's movies and it's all violence. They call it action movies. Violence. Even the children's stories are violent. Violence. It's all they know. Anyway, as the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one of the times that he was asked, how do you tell who is a Vaishnava? And his answer was, Asat Sangha Tyaga, a Vaishnava achar. This is the outstanding achar, characteristic or quality, behavior of a Vaishnava, and that is giving up bad association. Asat Sangha, association with unwholesome people. And mantra is the personification of unwholesomeness. And Kaikeyi turned from one who loved Ram more than her own son to the opposite. Quickly. In part because mantra had access to the ear and to the heart of Kaikeyi. From the time of Kaikeyi's marriage, it was mentioned this morning. Janaka gave dowries of great opulence. And what part of the dowry of Kaikeyi, part of the dowry when she was married, not this morning, Janak, but when her father sent her, Ashvapati, sent her to the kingdom of Koshala, along with her came Kaikeyi. Now, Kaikeyi was a hunchback who, besides her bodily form of structure, she wasn't beautiful. She was the other kind. But she was very devoted to Kaikeyi, and Kaikeyi felt that devotion and accepted that devotion, and so she had some intimacy with her. And when when Manthara saw the festivities for the coronation of Ram, she asked one of the maidservants, "What's all this about?" "Oh, didn't you know? Tomorrow, Ram is going to be crowned Prince Regent." Now, she knew. Manthara knew. Manthara had a really good memory for bad things. Some people let bad things go and they just remember good things. And some people can't remember anything. But she remembered the bad things. Like was mentioned, if you recall, one of the pranks that the boys did was they were having slush mud fights. Play. Still boys play. And one of the persons that was the brunt of their play was Manthara. And with an arrow that didn't harm Manthara, but they hit Manthara's back with a slush ball of mud. And the boys laughed, and Kaikeyi laughed, Koshalya laughed. Manthara didn't laugh. She already had enmity, unlike anybody else in the whole kingdom. She had enmity towards Ram. Why? Kaikeyi, the person who she was serving, she called her mistress, the servant of the queen, because she was favored because of her youth and her beauty and her wonderful qualities. Dasarath favored her above the other queens. And because she was favored, Kaikeyi was favored. Even Koshalya, the senior queen's maidservants, were respectful to Manthara, who was always the brunt of jokes because of her deformed back and her ugly features. So Kaikeyi was protecting her. I mean, Kaikeyi didn't necessarily consciously think that's what she was doing, but Manthara understood like that. And anything that compromised Kaikeyi's position, she saw that Ram becoming crowned king would compromise Kaikeyi's position. She would no longer be the favorite. Ram is going to become the king, and she takes the number 2 and number 3 spot, and that's going to put Manthara in a compromised position. No longer the favorite queen. It was her mind. It's how her mind worked. So she poisoned Kaikeyi, and Kaikeyi drank the poison. Initially she didn't. Now, in Mahabharata, there's a description of Manthara that the demigods wanted Lord Vishnu to appear to destroy Ravana. So Vishnu appeared. He agreed to appear. He appeared as Ram, and they knew it. The demigods knew it. But they also knew that Ram might be having too much fun. So much happiness in his association with everybody that loved him so much that he might forget or postpone destroying Ravana. And Ravana had to be destroyed, and there was only one person that could do it. Lord Vishnu, in the form of a human being, that was the solution. So Lord Vishnu took birth as if a human being, and Mantra was a Apsara, according to Mahabharata, who was sent by the demigods to take birth on earth and make sure that Ram didn't get distracted. So she was fulfilling their mission. That's Mahabharata. There's other references that say that she was an incarnation in Dwapara Yuga of the wife of the personality of Kali. Now, according to the drama that was written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which Prabhupada then explained about the drama to Hayagriva and had him write it as a play, as a drama, that Kali's wife, his consort, was Sin. That was Mantra. And according to this reference, in Dwapara Yuga, he manifested, or Mantra, this same personality, manifested within Duryodhana. And in Kali was the wife of Kali. Making disturbance, making dissension, causing enmity between one and another. So, the lesson, avoid bad association. And one of the ways to avoid bad association is what you hear. There's instructions. What to do, what not to do, what to hear, what not to hear. We're going to hear some of the glories of Lord Ramachandra as Dasarath recites them. And one of them, that's one of his glories, is he would never hear such talk. He'd never hear Gramya Katha or talk amongst people in general, worldly topics. Devotees should avoid those things. And if the conversation starts to move in the direction of criticism of a Vaishnava, we need to have some protocol built, hardwired into our system, how to deal with that. We don't hear it. And if you allow yourself to hear it, something happens. You start to see, even, you don't know if it's true, likely it's not true, because how many things have been said about somebody that's just not true? Lots of things. But then you start to look at that person in a different way. Maybe it's true. Maybe there's something, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? Maybe it's not completely true, but there's got to be something. So it's very contaminating. Now, one of the glories of Ram, just the opposite. We'll hear. So that's a practical lesson from all of this. And we're already at 6:25, so our discussion with the return of Dasarath and the entourage coming back to Ayodhya, encountering Parshuram. Ram becomes victorious in that encounter with Parshuram. They all return to Ayodhya, received very nicely in Ayodhya. And the beginning part that says they lived happily 12 years in Ayodhya, Sita and Ram, their happiness grew and grew and grew together. There's many things, of course, that Ram did in assisting Dasarath, and that's where Balakanda I'm just correcting myself again. That's where Balakanda ends. Ayodhya Kanda begins this evening. So, Dasarath has been ruling for 60,000 years as king. And he's considering everything that I desired has been fulfilled, except for one thing. I want to see Ram become the king while I'm still alive. We heard at the end of Balakanda that Yudhajit had invited Bharata, his nephew, to come to the kingdom of Kekaya. With Dasarath's blessing, he went, along with Shatrughna, and they spent some months happily in the association of one another. All the while happy with his family members, relatives, Bharata was thinking of Ayodhya and Dasarath and Ram and those who he loved so much. And Dasarath was thinking of them, naturally so, because he loved them so much. He loved all of his sons, but he especially loved Ram. And his thoughts then went to Ram. He would like to have Ram installed as king while he was still alive. So there's this long section that I'm only going to touch on some of the items from this long section listing the glories of Ram, the outstanding qualities of Ram. So this is just a sampler. His physical features, his appearance was very charming. And he had great valor, not only strength, but he would always be victorious in whatever undertaking he took. Yet, at the same time, he was always very humble. And he was never envious of others that may have something that he thought, I don't have, I'd like to have that something that they have. It was just, there was no pride and envy in his heart. As far as a son to the father is concerned, nowhere on earth was there anyone equal to him. His affection and total loyalty to his father was superlative. In social dealings, he always knew what to say. And he wasn't the second person to speak when spoken to. He always spoke first and had just the right thing to say in such a sweet manner, the person's heart melted. Socially very skilled. Whenever someone said something to him that was harsh, he never responded in a harsh way back. He always spoke very pleasingly in response. Dasarath says persons could offend him 100 times and he would simply overlook it. But if someone rendered even the smallest of service, he would recognize that smallest of service and encourage that person, recognize that person. Again and again this comes in Ramayana, this special quality of Ram, the squirrel pastime, in anybody, anything. He recognized, he appreciated service, the mood of service with love. He always, and his brothers, liked to hear from elevated personalities, exalted persons, even when he was attending to his duties as a student, when attending archery practice. If there was some elevated person in between, he would go and sit at their feet and hear from them. And of course, he's the personality Godhead. Who does he need to hear from? But he's showing an example. He never spoke a lie. He was very learned in the scriptures and the ways of life, and was always very respectful to others, and particularly respectful to elders. He loved the citizens very much. He treated the citizens like his own family, and they loved him very much because of his qualities and his love for them. He never showed anger. He always showed instead kindness. And he was particularly respectful to brahmanas. There's pages of this. He knew how to raise funds. And he knew how to spend funds, and he knew how to not spend funds. And he knew how to build the treasury, retain funds when it was needed. His devotion was unflinching. His intelligence was always very steady. He surpassed even his father in the skills of archery and other military capacity. He knew how to gather pious men around him and to be very kind to them. He was very conversant with the art of war. He never used foul language. He never gathered impious persons around him. And so on. This is Dasarath contemplating the wonderful qualities of his son that endeared his son so much to him and to all the people, and he was then very seriously contemplating when, not if, but when, to install him as the Prince Regent. Prince Regent means it's already by ceremony determined when Dasarath leaves either the kingdom to go to the forest or leaves his body or whatever, he'll become the king. It's done. It's a done deal. He'll become the king. Not yet the king, but he'll become the king. It's already done. But he wanted to do that. So he decided that he would call his ministers and nearby kings, because he was the emperor of kings, and seek their counsel, because that was part of what a good king does. He doesn't make decisions independently. And he put it to them this way: tomorrow there's a very auspicious constellation of stars, and I want to take advantage of that auspicious constellation of stars and install my son, Prince Ram, as the Prince Regent. There's a particular ceremony. I'd like to undertake that ceremony tomorrow, and I'm seeking your counsel. I'd like to know from you if you think that's a good idea. And if you think that's not a good idea, I'd like to hear from you what I should do instead. That's how it was put to them. And they all applauded, yay, do it. He said, no, that wasn't my question. My question was, if you are in favor of this, then I would like you to give your reasons. Why? I'm the king. I've been ruling the kingdom for 60,000 years. I've been doing a good job. Why would you want to see me while I'm still around? Why don't you argue with me that, oh no, you should stay around for some more years? Why would you want to see him tomorrow installed as king? He wanted to hear Ram glorified in this public assembly. So pages and pages and pages of the glories of Ram, from the ministers, from the kings, from the sages, the qualified brahmanas. And some of the glories that they speak about point to he had deep concern for the welfare of everyone. And everyone knew it, everyone felt it. Some of the examples, when he would be out in returning from some expedition, riding on an elephant. Now, remember, he's still young. Oh, yeah. In this section, Dasarath says, Ram is now 27. So we heard the other day that Sita said when Ram was asked to go to the forest, he was 25. It's in the same Valmiki Ramayana. So let's say he's 27. They were married for 12 years. So when he was married, he was 15. And Sita was 7 years younger. She was 8 instead of 5. And Urmila was her younger sister. So she was 7. And for 1 year, there was this big battle with the king that wanted Sita to be his wife. So then you reduce it by another one. Anyway, you figure it out. So when Ram is returning from some expedition, some challenge that he had to meet with Dasarath's army, even while he's riding on an elephant, he would ask, how is your family? How are your children, your wife, your sacrifices, your servants and your students? As if these persons were his own children and his own family members. All the citizens felt like that. The brahmanas, he would ask, are your students and disciples attending properly to your needs and hearing from you in the proper manner? He would ask the rulers, subordinate rulers of Dasarath, are you protected by guards wearing armor? Are you safe and protected in your situation? And on and on and on and on and on. Your son is intent on pouring protection and care and affection to all the citizens. He's fully qualified. And on and on. And so Dasarath is very happy. He says, then, with your approval, Vashishta and Vamana, please begin the arrangements for the yajna to commence tomorrow. Vamana and Vashishta turned to Sumantra and said, you make the arrangements for tomorrow. Because they're going to do the yajna and he has to arrange everything. Then, in this public assembly, he invites Ram. He sends a messenger. Ram comes in a chariot, and comes right into the palace in this big assembly, and so that everyone can hear, Dasarath is giving instructions to Ram. Oh, I just remembered something. In this beginning of this Ayodhya Kanda, Valmiki says, as Dasarath is contemplating the qualities of Ram, Valmiki says, he's Lord Vishnu. Now, this is important because sometimes people say in Valmiki Ramayana he's portrayed as human, not as Vishnu, but there's multiple places. One we mentioned already. Parshuram says he's Vishnu. You are Vishnu, the killer of the Madhu demon, the Supreme Personality. Here again, next Kanda, very beginning, he's Lord Vishnu. He's Vishnu. But he's playing the role, the Leela, of a human. The ideal king human. The ideal, back to the question at the beginning when Valmiki was asking Narada, who is that person on earth that has all these ideal hero qualities? It's Ram. So we're hearing multiple times, again and again, the glories of Ram, the glories of Ram. There's a reason for it. To love him, to take shelter of him, to feel protected by him, to feel secure in his association. There's this really nice passage where Vibhishan, you remember seeing that image first morning. Vibhishan is hovering in the air because he had this capacity to travel that way. Behind him, the 4 ministers, and then standing at the southern tip of India, there's Ram, there's Lakshman, there's Sugriva, there's Hanuman, and Jambavan. And Sugriva, Vibhishan has asked for shelter. There's details. He's greeted by Sugriva. Sugriva says, he doesn't go directly to Ram, he says, could you carry the message to Ram and ask him if he'll accept me as his devotee? Sugriva comes with his caution. I don't trust him. He's been with Ram, he's Ravan, he's Ravana's brother, he's got some other motive, and everyone's consulted, except for Hanuman. They all said, be cautious, or don't do it, or send him back, or, we don't trust him, watch him for some time. Hanuman dismisses all of them, specifically one by one, and says, even if he has some other motive, he's taking shelter of Ram. And Ram is supreme, pure, and powerful. He can take care of someone that has some other motive. Ram will accept him. He should be accepted. Then Ram speaks. He's asking his ministers and advisors, then he speaks. Please understand it, a very famous quote from Valmiki Ramayana. Please understand this very clearly. Hear it very carefully and clearly. Anyone who even once says that they take shelter of me, from that day forward, I consider them mine, and I will give them protection. It's Ram. It's the person that we're hearing about. It's his nature. So, although he's so qualified like this, when Dasharatha calls him into this public assembly, he starts instructing him, because he's the father. He's a father that has over-the-top feelings of love for his son, yet he's instructing him, because that's what fathers are to do. He said, you already have abundant qualities. You should increase in your quality of humility. Although you're abundantly humble, become more humble. Maintain your mind and senses, always under control. These are qualities he's already said that he has. But he's instructing him, because Ram is obedient to the instructions of his father, so he's instructing him. Avoid the vices born of lust and anger. Rule by the direct and indirect methods. Please your ministers and other officials and all the citizens, increasing the wealth in the treasury and the supplies in the armory. A monarch who loves the citizens and is loved by them protects the earth, and his friends celebrate. He's giving other instructions also. So Ram feels protected by and loved by his father, giving him such good instruction. Message goes quickly to Kaushalya to tell Kaushalya the good news. Ram bows to the king. He bowed when he first came. He fell at his feet, bowed at his feet. Now he leaves in the same manner. He goes to give the news to Kaushalya and others. Dasarath retires to his quarters. He begins to take rest. He has this bad dream, once again, a recurring bad dream. He calls Ram a second time to come to his room. And Ram comes. And he tells Ram some of the reasons why he wants his coronation to happen as quickly as possible. He's speaking confidentially to his son. I'm having these very ominous dreams. Meteors and lightning come crashing down and explode everything. And all darkness pervades. Astrologers say that I'm afflicted by an inauspicious configuration of planets, which indicate great calamity is soon to come. Either certain death or some great disaster. And I'm getting old, and old people get fuddy. And before that happens, I want this to happen. I want to see you crowned as king. And he then, this is where he reveals, I didn't invite Bharata to come. Though he doesn't say because he was already promised to his mother that he would become king. But if he was here, who knows? The mind is fickle. The minds of men can be very quick to change. So, sleep well and let us proceed first thing in the morning. So just speaking in confidence, late at night. Ram goes back. Ram breaks the news to Sita. Vishishta comes with an explanation of what fasting he should observe, and details of how he should conduct himself for the rest of the evening and in the early morning, and so forth. Ram's very grateful, Sita's very grateful. Ram follows the instructions. Details, and he follows the instructions. Next morning, early in the morning, Manthara is up on the roof and of the palace, and she sees all these arrangements going on. And she asks what's going on, and she's told, and she comes running down to the private chamber of Kaikeyi. Get up! Get up, you fool! Can't you see the disaster that is about to engulf you? You are so deluded by your husband's sweet words that you do not realize what is happening before your eyes. Kaikeyi doesn't know what's going on. And she innocently says, I see no fault, and I think it's wonderful. So Manthara flies into a rage. Now, it's 10 minutes before our closing time. I like to keep our schedule. I was thinking this ahead of time. There's to cover all this in detail from the Valmiki Ramayana. It's like 18 pages. And so what I wanted to do is just cover Krishna Dharma's writing, maybe encourage you when you go back to your place to read Krishna Dharma's rendering. It's a combination of Valmiki Ramayana and the Adhyatma Ramayana. But his writing skill is very good, and he's, capsulized it so it's a little shorter than 18 pages. So I'd like to just read, because there's the flow of the back and forth. It shows that, like, the turning points and how through sound vibration Kaikeyi's love for Ram gets transformed into the opposite. It gets destroyed, it gets poisoned. In the poison giver's mantra. Kaikeyi smiled. She loved Ram as much as her own dear son. While Ram, for his part, looked upon Kaikeyi as being equal to his own mother, Kaushalya. She felt a surge of joy upon hearing Mantra's report. She could not understand why Mantra was disturbed. Why was she so vehement? If anyone else had spoken about Dasarath and Ram in such a way, she would have had them punished. But Kaikeyi was accustomed to her servant's sullen temperament. She felt that there was no malice in Mantra, despite her often angry expressions. Taking a necklace, a brilliant diamond set in gold, Kaikeyi handed it to her servant and said, "My dear Dhatri, this is surely the best news you have ever brought me. My heart swells with pleasure at hearing your words, which seem to me like nectar. I wish to reward you. Take this gift and tell me if there's anything else I can do for you." However, this only served to further enrage Mantra. Having mastered the art of seductive speech, Mantra then spoke to Kaikeyi in a way that will eventually cause her to doubt her husband, feel dejection, and allow a feeling of estrangement for Ram to enter her heart. Here comes the poison. Mantra threw down the necklace and began rebuking Kaikeyi. "This is no occasion for joy, foolish lady. What strange frame of mind has seized you? An ocean of grief threatens to overwhelm you, and yet you stand here smiling? Your stepbrother, your stepson, Ram, will become king, while your own son, Bharata, is left aside. Bharata's claim to the throne is the same as Ram's." She knows the pledge that Dasarath gave to her father. And thus Ram will see him as an enemy. Lakshman serves only Ram, and Shatrughna serves your son. Therefore, it is only Ram or Bharata who may be crowned as the sovereign of this world. My mind quakes with fear to think of the danger to your son by the powerful Ram once he is king. Mantra's eyes grew bloodshot with fury, and her face whitened as she spoke. Why was Kaikeyi not understanding? Kaushalya had long been snubbed by the king in favor of Kaikeyi. When Ram became the king, that would all change. Kaushalya would be exalted to the highest level, while Kaikeyi would lose her special position as the king's most favored consort. Kaushalya would certainly exact her revenge for her long suffering. Kaikeyi would become Kaushalya's maidservant, and Bharata would at best be Ram's servant. More likely, he would be exiled. She is saying all these things. Where would that leave Kaikeyi's servants? Praying to the gods to help her, the hunchbacked maid became more ardent in her plea. "You must do something. This is a great disaster. Once the crown has passed to the other side of your family, you will in no time see your own side sink into oblivion, bereft of all royal fortune." Hearing this strong submission from her servant, the beautiful Kaikeyi thought of Ram. She could not imagine him bearing any ill will toward Bharata. Mantra's fears were quite groundless. Ram always acted in perfect accord with religious principles. He was devoted to truth, disciplined, and always kind. He doubtlessly deserved to be king. After he was crowned, he would surely look after his younger brothers like a father. Mantra had no reason to feel such distress. Kaikeyi chided her gently. When such an occasion for rejoicing has come, you should by no means give way to grief. my dear maidservant, nor should you think ill of Ram. My son Bharata will be in no danger from Ram, and in the future he may well succeed him to the throne. There is no need for lamentation. She's devoted to Ram. Mantra would not be placated. In order to improve her own position, she wanted her mistress to be the mother of the king. Just like Dhritarashtra wanted his sons to become the king. So diabolical means. Blinded by her own greed and envy, Mantra considered the emperor to be acting from similar motivations. She continued to beseech Kaikeyi in increasingly rancorous tones. Surely it is due only to stupidity that you fail to see your impending doom, O deluded one. Ram will be crowned king, and after him will come his son. Where then will Bharata be left? Not all of the sons of a king can assume the throne. It falls only on one among them. Having taken hold of the throne, Ram will ensure that it goes to his own son, if necessary, by banishing Bharata, or perhaps by even sending him to the next world. You and your line will be lost and forsaken. I am here to awaken you to a great peril, now arrived at your door. Do not disregard me. Mantra's lofty position in the palace had gone to her head. She was furious at the prospect of losing her status, and she continued to present many arguments to her mistress. She played upon the natural rivalry existing between the king's co-wives. Kaikeyi's affection for Ram was deep, and the discussion went back and forth for some time, but gradually Mantra began to change her mistress's mind. By the gods' arrangement, her arguments swayed Kaikeyi's mind, and the queen's intelligence became confused. Although she loved Ram, she began to consider that his installation was an injustice. Mantra saw in Kaikeyi's face that her mind was wavering. She grasped the queen's hands. There is a way by which we may not be ruined. If Ram can be sent to the forest and Bharata installed in his place, then the sovereignty may be secured in your line. This idea had entered Mantra's mind by the sudden inspiration of the gods, meaning, to help get Ram out of the picture so he can go kill Ravana, the whole thing. Kaikeyi, intrigued, looked at her servant. How can this be accomplished? Of course, this is a shortened version. I like the version that said, why are you asking me this question? Surely you must remember. But if you don't remember, I remember and I'll tell you. Some time ago, you told me how you once went with your husband when he was assisting Indra in a battle against the demons. Having fought hard one day, your husband lay unconscious on the battlefield, his body severely wounded. A grave danger beset him then from a demon who would have come at night to devour the bodies of the warriors still on the field. Kaikeyi nodded, remembering the incident. Many years back, the emperor had gone to the heavens, taking Kaikeyi with him. He was famed as an invincible warrior, and the gods had asked his assistance in a fight. At that time he fought so powerfully that his chariot appeared to be facing 10 directions simultaneously, and thus the gods had therefore named him Dasha Ratha, or 10 chariots. We're almost done. Mantra continued. At that time, seeing the danger to Dasrath, you rode in a chariot and rescued your lord. Upon recovering, he offered you 2 boons, but you deferred them to a time when you might need them most. Surely that time has come now. Go to Dasarath and ask that he banish Ram and install Bharata in his place as the prince regent. In this way, we shall both be saved. Despite her love and her attachment for Ram, Kaikeyi became convinced by Mantra's arguments. She was upset. How could the king have treated her in such a way? He was always so kind and loving. Was all that just a show to win her favor? She began to feel angry. Now there's other things that are said that, she was stubborn. She didn't know the ways of the world, so she couldn't understand, if I do this, then there's consequences over there. She didn't have the capacity to think in those ways. Mantra was manipulating, and so as the story unfolds, Kaikeyi becomes convinced. Mantra rehearses again and again, and again and again, and again and again, and your resolve must be strong. When Dasarath comes, don't yield, don't even speak. He'll appeal to you this way and cry, and he'll insult, and he'll do so many things. Don't budge. Insist. So the coach took care of Kaikeyi, Coach Mantra, preparing her for this wicked deed that later considered totally sinful. In Vedic culture, to banish someone to the forest, they had to have done most heinous thing, just like we heard. When Asamanjasa, who was part of the royal family, was doing this abominable thing of taking small children and throwing them into the Sarayu and watching them drown, laughing, and he would do it again and again, he was banished. So for Ram to be banished when he did nothing, it's not to be done. It's sinful. Her desire was sinful, although she had the right to ask for the two boons. The boon that she was asking for was terrible, in so many levels, terrible. But she lost it with fear instilled and animosity instilled by the bad association personality, Mantra. In the context of Valmiki Ramayana and Mahabharata, there was a purpose to it all, which later on Ram acknowledges. This is providence. How can something like this happen? There's no good explanation for it, other than it's providential. And so, Lakshman, let us just accept it's providential. Don't place the blame on this one, that one, the other one. It's just meant to be. So let's just accept it. When the king sees you distraught, he will take you up and offer you anything. He'll present priceless gems and pearls. Don't be distracted from your goal. Insist upon the two boons. Everything depends upon your determination. Remain determined. Go, team, go. Coach Mantra said. Let's do it again. And she did it again, and then she did it again, and she rehearsed her again. Go into the sulking room. Make your hair disheveled and throw your jewels and ornaments on the floor and cry and lie there distressed and do as I say. With her ornaments scattered and her garland crushed, Kaikeyi lay on the beautiful mosaic floor, appearing like a goddess fallen from the heavens, her face dark with rage. She tossed about and sobbed. So that covers our topics for this evening. Bad association. There's other things. commonly it is said that pride can destroy everything good. I've repeated that probably 500 times. Pride can destroy everything good. Bad association similarly has that power. And you allow bad association into your ear, and everything good can be destroyed. In terms of the plan of the Lord, it's all part of the plan of the Lord. All is well. In terms of lessons to be learned, bad association is to be avoided vigilantly. If we want to make our way to the place of shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, bad association is to be avoided. She's criticizing Dasarath, she's criticizing Ram, she's placing ill motivations and imaginative outcomes and so many to get what she wants. The end justifies the means. I want my position secure. And this is the way to get it. Okay, so we'll continue tomorrow morning. It stays dark for some time. You found? Yeah, tragedy is the word. So, sthayi bhav, back to that reference of Rupa Goswami. There are 7 secondary and 5 primary rasas. They have names. One of them is tragedy. Ram is the presiding deity of tragedy in Rupa Goswami's writings. And we'll share a little bit more tomorrow morning first thing on this topic. That which may look like tragedy, according to our great acharyas, it's actually an opportunity to come closer to the position of shelter. You know that common saying, adversity can be opportunity. But in terms of rasa, everything depends, let's just do this. Everything depends upon we'll do it tomorrow. Everything depends upon being very clear where your place of shelter is. And if you're very clear where your place of shelter is, then this tragedy or very difficult circumstance is something that one can pass through as an opportunity to feel more intensely the shelter. We'll cover it some more tomorrow. It's an important lesson. Very important lesson at the whole of life, as taught in Ramayana, and Lord Rama is the presiding deity of this one. It's practical for us. How do you deal with what Prabhupada calls reversals? I can tell you, it's one of the things that, as a person guiding spiritual lives, it's way up there on the the topics that get discussed between the one guiding disciples and disciples, or devotees in general, whether they're disciples or not. Because life is filled with such things. And how do you handle it? How do you stay steady? It's one of the qualifications that highlights the quality of Bharata. Circumstance didn't change his intelligence. I gave the example when Mantra was brought before Bharata and Shatrughna. They heard the news They've been through their initial emotional upheaval about the whole thing. Mantra is brought by one of the ministers before them, saying, she's the one, she's behind all of this. Your brother is banished and your father is dead because of her. Shatrughna starts to beat her. Bharata stops her. And his reason for stopping her is Ram wouldn't be pleased. She may be deserving punishment, but not like this. Ram wouldn't be pleased, so we can't do it this way. She'll get her punishment in some other way, but not this way, because Ram wouldn't be pleased. Intelligence needs to be guided. There's something behind intelligence, what drives intelligence. It's where your values are, what's really important to you, where your shelter is, what your goal of life is. If those things are ill-defined, you can blow around like a leaf in the wind. Doesn't even take adversity. Just a little wind and... These are realities. These are practical lessons for our lives in a world that's very flickering, temporary, transient, up and down and sideways and all around and upside down. And we've all experienced all of those things, sometimes more intensely than at other times. How do you stay steady? How do you deal with it? So I'm saying in principle it's knowing where your place of shelter is and striving to take shelter of that place of shelter. And you just stay on course. And in Bharat's case, is what's pleasing to Ram. For many of us, it's those who are guiding us in their spiritual life. It doesn't. You can put aside. We discussed this before. You can put aside something that you hold as important, a value for you, like with Ram, when he was told, kill Tataka. He had a value. You honor mothers. She looks ugly, but she's a mother. Kill her. And there was scriptural reasons, but he's got a value, that's built into him. Kill her. Because she doesn't fit the qualification. It's something like what Krishna said to Arjuna. Don't think that because Ashvatthama is a Brahmana, you'll commit the sin of killing a Brahmana, because although he's born as a Brahmana, his behavior isn't a Brahmana. He's not a Brahmana. Such a sin will not come to you. Kill him. So that's pretty harsh, But so it's not with matters that are so extreme, killing somebody or not killing somebody, but how to make the right choices in life. And we're responsible for the choices we make in life. And how to remain steady when you're not even clear what the right choice to make is. And it seems like adversity is pushing you in a difficult space. Anyway, these are practical considerations. Minimally, be very clear what your place of shelter is. What's your goal? Long term, not the short term. Long term, what's the goal? Deep, deep, deep inside, what's really important to you. So we'll touch on this some more, because it plays out a whole bunch as we go along, as Ram hears the message, and then Bharata hears the message, and Bharata tries to bring his feelings to Ram. We're going to hear some more. But this is the theme. What's really important to you? What's the place of shelter for you? Not just because somebody says it should be. What is it? And if to a degree there's mix, shelter in the asat, good luck. Because you'll get blown around by circumstances that are taxing and difficult. No shelter. Be clear what your place of shelter is and strive to go to that place of shelter. each circumstance that comes your way, each decision that you have to make, each important action that you take in your life. These are very practical lessons. The story is fantastic. Very practical lessons the Supreme Lord is giving us. Srila Prabhupada ki, Sri Ramachandra ki.
Hare Krishna. For the pleasure of Guru and Gauranga, book distributions is going on.